You want to know how your identity is built? I'm going to be discussing the 5 key foundations that you need to have a healthy identity so you can have the internal certainty and trust and not get it from everyone else out there. So if you're new here, my name's Chris Sleddy. I help high-achieving professionals clear out their self-sabotaging patterns, match their identity to their goals in 12 weeks through our Ladonian Method 12-week program. Now, let's talk about our identity and how that is really formed, right? Ultimately, 0 to 7 is where you form your identity. And it is critical to understand, if you're a parent out there, is that your child needs certain things to be fulfilled in order for them to have the internal certainty, right? The internal autonomy versus they learn to get things externally. And when you learn to get things externally, you're giving your power away to other people to dictate your life, how you feel, your worth, all these aspects, right, is where we have these bottlenecks. So 0 to 7 is where we develop our internal compass, right? We model it from our external world. And you got to think of your house, or your identity, much like a house. It has a foundation, right? Our foundation is trust. And when I say trust, I'm not talking about external, right? All these things are internally driven. So I'm talking about internal trust, safety. This is where we feel anchored, right? That we can back ourselves, that we've got our own back. We're not looking for other people to support us in that sense, right? We might ask it for advice occasionally and things like that, which is totally normal. But what I'm saying is that we know that the decision's up to us and that we are taking 100% responsibility for our life, our outcomes, and our mistakes. And we look at mistakes in a very different way, right? When we're healthy, we look at them in a way that it's just feedback. Results tell you what to adjust, not who you are as a person. So it's important to understand that when we have wounds, right, what we call imprints in NLP, right? When we have a negative imprint in our life, it colors our reality. So we will see things like this. When we're wounded, you hear people's language. I feel abandoned, right? I'm unprotected. I feel like I'm not safe. I'm alone. There's loneliness. I'm helpless, right? I'm an outcast. I'm just rejected. I'm outcast from society, if you like, or family or friends or whatever it might be. So when we have these wounds, right, we develop compensating behaviors. So we procrastinate, we hesitate, right? We hide, we deflect, we withdraw. And this creates an overcompensation in relationships, right? If we have relational issues, we're always needing that person to, let's say, text you back, let you know where you are all the time, right? You constantly need an affirmation to know, okay, the relationship's okay, right? You fear doing the wrong thing that might break the relationship, okay? You fear being abandoned, so you overcompensate, which actually causes the exact thing you fear, okay? You actually push people away because you're overly needy, all right? So these wounds cause, it's like a mirror. They cause the actual fear to come upon you because of your overcompensating behaviors. And this is why the wound stacks up even more over time, is because we have patterns that are protection mechanisms from an early age, but we haven't adjusted them and we haven't learned. We were taught we saw reality in an unhealthy, distorted way early on, right? Because of who we modeled. So number 1 is trust. Number 2, if we don't back ourselves to make decisions and trust ourselves, right, then we're really going to struggle with self-expression. Self-expression is you want to speak up, you speak up, right? You have a voice, you feel comfortable with who you are and expressing who you are as a person. The language of people that are wounded in this area is, I'm disrespected, right? I feel powerless. I feel stuck, trapped. I'm voiceless, right? I have no voice. I'm rejected. So the compensating behaviors here, right, is hiding. You don't want to speak up because you might offend somebody. You don't want to assert yourself. You don't want to say no because that feels selfish. You don't want to put yourself first because that feels selfish. I don't want to upset anyone by saying no and saying, you know what, no, I can't do that. I'll do it. So you're somebody that is an overgiver, right? You're overcompensating, where you give, and drain yourself, and you get resentful and bitter towards people, right? Because you're not getting things in return, because you've trained everyone that you're the giver, and they get, and it's great, right? So this is where you develop the wounds. Well, the wounds, developed at an early age. They just get compounded, is what I'm trying to say, over time. So we really lack that self-expression. We're not unapologetic about who we are. We don't feel like we can speak our truth, like what we really want to say. We pull that back, okay? So next one, right, is execution. So execution, I want to try and explain this in a way you understand it. Execution and integrity, right? It's about the internal thinking processes you have, right? This is where you get into overthinking, perfectionism, analyzing, comparing, right? I'm a good person or a bad person. We're very black and white thinking, right? It's like, think of it like it's the law. You're either convicted or you're innocent or guilty. There's no in between. So this is where the black and white thinking can happen, and you want to compensate by being perfect. If I'm perfect, I'm not going to make mistakes, right? You fear mistakes so much, right? We have to look at mistakes as feedback. We have to look at results we get as what we need to adjust, not who we are as a person, okay? So wounds in this area really affect your ability to be consistent and follow a path or follow a system to actually, like I said, executing. But it's about our internal thinking process. We're not making things like, oh, it's my fault, right? I'm stupid, right? I'm inadequate. These are the things people would say, like, to themselves, maybe not out loud, right? I'm a failure. I'm a bad person. I'm defective. Something's wrong with me, right? It's this very black and white, good, bad, failure, success mentality. So this is about creating those internal thinking process that really is healthy. There's flexibility there. We have the ability to assess and evaluate and make much better adjustments as we move forward with our goals. If we aren't able to do this, then this area, right, growth, which is all about expansion, impact, contribution, right, fulfillment. These are the type of emotions, or what people would say, right? I'm feeling really fulfilled. I feel very satisfied. I'm doing something very, important and significant. So people here, the wounds for them is, I don't matter, right? I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. And when we start to look at these wounds, right, these generalizations you make about yourself is, well, who decides when you're good enough or not good enough, whether you're worthy or not worthy? Actually, when would you know you're worthy? See, when you start to actually take this generalization you have and start to question it and start to go, well, how do I know when I'm disrespected? Well, that person, again, it's external. What about the respect you have for yourself? Do you actually respect you? Okay, often people are mirrors to what's happening internally for you. All right? So living in these worlds is these standards that you've got to constantly try and meet. And so what we do, if this is resonating with you, what we do is we unpack what's happening unconsciously for you and collapse these realities that are opposing you and that are conflicting, that are stopping you. And that we do that in the 12-week program, links below, and we really dismantle all those sabotaging patterns for you. So the next one, right, this is all about authenticity, right, and meaning. It's purposeful, driven, servanthood. It's bigger than who you are as a person, right? This is where we derive so much of our purpose it's a sense of oneness, right? Like I just feel like what I'm doing is just so enormous, and I'm one with all and all with one, right? So you hear these, like, you hear people's phrases like this, where there's a sense of being like open-hearted, right? They've just got this love for everyone, for doing what they're doing. There's this open-heartedness. There's not any like boundaries and walls up and things like that. They're very aligned with who they are as a person. They're aligned with their values, their mission. I really think this area for me, when I think more deeply about it, is really about mission. It's about that mission to contribute, that mission of something that's greater than who you are. And so when we have this area is wounded, when this area is wounded, it's all about you're not seen, you're not heard, you're invisible, you're like a ghost. Right? You don't actually get seen, right? You're excluded, you're not connected. You feel like a fraud. So this is somebody who is pretending to be somebody else, right? They learned that getting love meant they had to be someone else, right? Growing up as a kid, they were inauthentic. So they had to be someone else to get love, and that means they live in this fake world. So they have these giant conflicts when they go with relationships, right? They got to put on a performance, pretend to be somebody else, right? But they hate who they are as a person because they're not who they really are. And what's life worth living when you're not living as you and not being loved for who you are? So we've got to dismantle those fears about being who you are, so we can then, one, see who we really are. So can you see the paradoxes here? I'm not seen, but I have to be inauthentic to get love. That means I'm not actually seeing myself. I'm continually hiding who I really am. So you can see how these can compound and cause enormous problems as we go on in life, in our relationships, in business, with whatever we do. We carry our identity everywhere. So it doesn't matter what you're doing, it's always there for you. So really, the key principles here, right, is externally driven patterns, meaning you have to get it outside of yourself all the time, is giving your power away to others, right? You're letting other people dictate what you think, feel, and believe, and how you live life. Internally driven people, right, they have an enormous internal autonomy, self-trust. That doesn't mean they don't trust others. They know that when we look at trusting others, we look for competency. We look at, okay, I can trust them in that area because they've demonstrated that. Doesn't mean I trust them with everything, but I know they're rock solid in that area, right? So they have the ability to discern. Instead of making blanket statements, they're able to look at the key things that make things work, right? The healthy execution, right? Healthy integrity. They're actually able to assess and evaluate things much clearer and accurately. So that's really the key things. If you're interested in what we do, we can help you solve these self-sabotaging patterns. We do that in a 12-week program. Links below. Talk to you then.